Now, The Hunt Palmer Show.
Waiting to rise again.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show. Brought to you by Quirks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp on 104.5 ESPN Baton Rouge.
This is the moment you've all been waiting for.
Locking down the middle of the day. Live from the Raising Cane studio. This is Hunt Palmer.
Welcome in, hour number 2 here on a Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Hunt not here, Taylor Sharp in the host chair for our guy Hunt Palmer for another 60 minutes or so as we are working towards the weekend. Just awful news there if you heard the Sports Center update. Bucky Irving ruled out for the Bucks. That's big for me, Beck, because Bucky Irving.
Big for me.
Well, Bucky Irving's one of my fantasy running backs.
He is for me too.
Okay, so here's my question. I'm all for player safety, but it's pretty selfish of Bucky to rule himself out, not call us and discuss it with us.
At least tell us
way.
ahead of time so that way we can adjust our rosters accordingly to the injury.
Well, there is one silver lining.
What is it?
I also have Rashad White.
I also have Travis Etienne. So I'm chilling.
Look, we're good.
We're good. It's all right.
Okay. Bucky Irving may not want to fight through it. You and I, we're going to fight through it.
We're going to fight through it.
We're going to roll through the punches. Okay, that's depressing for our fantasy teams. We were kind of depressing in hour number 1, talking about all the things LSU's awful at, all the things they need to fix, and I understand that. Like during this segment, I promise you, there's going to be people in our YouTube chat. Taylor, what are you talking about? LSU's the worst team in the league. We're not winning another game. I get it. It's tough to have a bye week after a loss. But look, it's the last hour of the work week on this show. Next week, you move on to South Carolina. What I want to do here is something that hasn't probably been done a lot on this station during this week. I'm going to give a little positivity segment for the LSU Tigers. I'm done with the negativity. It's time to move on to South Carolina. I want to look back through the first 5 games of the season and give you some bright spots for LSU because believe it or not, guys, there's a lot of bright spots. There's a lot of negatives. You got some bright spots as well. First one, your secondary is absolutely awesome. I don't care how many yards Trinidad Chambliss threw for. You gave up 24 points. 24 points is 24 points. I don't care how many yards he threw for. And you were on the field for 90 plays compared to 53 or whatever it was for LSU. You were on the field way too much. You had an interception return for a touchdown that was called back. Then you got another pick. This team forces turnovers. You knew coming into the season, though, that this secondary had a chance to be special. I had talked about it on the morning show. I'm sure Hunt did. I'm sure Matt Moscona did. Anybody that was out there for this fall camp saw it. Look, the combination of Ansor Delane, P.J. Woodland, and then your 2 safeties, Tamarcus Cooley, A.J. Halsey, it could very well be the best in the SEC. And you could kind of see it coming. Not just from the performance of what you saw in fall camp, but you knew you were going to be improved. This is something I've brought up a number of times. You knew it was going to be better because the guys you relied on to start for you multiple games a year ago are struggling to find the field this year. Case in point, Jordan Gilbert started double-digit games for you a year ago. He can't find a spot in the safety rotation. They've actually moved him to star to back up Harold Perkins. But what happened? A.J. Halsey got ruled ineligible for the first half of the Clemson game. Gilbert goes in there, boom, awesome. So you have a really good frontline talent, but you also have solid depth. Like we were talking to Preston Guy earlier, and he was like, Deshaun Spears is a bright spot for this team. I agree. I think Spears has played well. He's struggling to get in the starting rotation because A.J. Halsey and Tamarcus Cooley were so good. I thought Halsey and Cooley were really good against Ole Miss. Halsey was one of the highest graded players. I don't care what Cooley's grade was. I saw him make a bunch of plays in that Ole Miss game as well. Your secondary is awesome. It's not just the safeties, though, like DJ Pickett, Ashton Stamps. Think about it. Ashton Stamps was considered a team captain in fall camp. Took most of the first team reps. Then, maybe 2.5 weeks before the first game, it kind of shifted a little bit. P.J. Woodland was getting in there more and more. He was making plays in fall camp. P.J. Woodland's been awesome this year. Stamps has played sparingly. That's a guy who was essentially a 2-year starter for you coming into this season. And he was kind of your only returner. DJ Pickett, 5-star. He's played a lot. He's not in the starting rotation. Again, I mentioned Spears. I mentioned Jordan Gilbert. Javian Toviano is a guy we haven't seen a lot of. We've seen him, but again, your secondary is so deep. Also, I think your defensive tackle play has been much better from a year ago. Now, a year ago, you kind of try to piece it together because Jacobian Guillory goes down with the leg injury, first game of the season, pretty much. You have to piece it together. You had a freshman, Ahmad Bro, who had to gain 40 pounds in the offseason just to slide inside. He was 245 when he got here as a freshman. He ended last season at, 285? He had to put on a lot of weight. You had Dominic McKinley, who's a physical specimen. He was a true freshman. And you had Gio Paez. That was kind of the only veteran guy you had. I mean, your best interior pass rusher from a year ago wound up being JVR Suggs, who was a little bit undersized for the position. You have Guillory back. He's been really good. Obviously, Ahmad Bro and Dominic McKinley are a year older in this defense under Blake Baker. They've done a really good job. But Bernard Gooden, I mean, when you signed him from South Florida, there were a lot of people out there that said, oh, Bernard Gooden's going to start. Go watch his tape at South Florida. He's really good. There were some people that were like, he's a little undersized. He's probably a depth piece. When we were given the roster at fall camp, you immediately go, okay, this guy's at this number so I can watch him out there on the field. What's their height and weight? I wish I still had it with me, but luckily I remember. I look down. Oh, who's 88? He's making plays. It said Bernard Gooden, 6'1", 268 pounds. I remember that vividly because I'm like, wait a minute. Your number one defensive tackle, the guy that's been the most disruptive player on the D-line all fall camp, is 6'1", 268 pounds. He's just a guy that finds a way. I mean, you did not have a guy on Bernard Gooden's level a year ago on that defensive line. Guillory maybe could have been that guy, but again, he got hurt week 2 of the season. Paez was never going to be that number one guy on the defensive line. He was a good player. He was a starter for you. And then JVR Suggs came in on passing downs. He wasn't an every down defensive tackle for you. Bernard Gooden, he didn't come off the field a whole heck of a lot. He will every now and then to get a breather and get some of those other guys in there, but Bernard Gooden's been the anchor of that defensive line, and he's done a heck of a job. Now, you knew your defensive ends were going to flash, right? You don't have a ton of sacks from the defensive end spot. Like, actually, Hunt Palmer, while we're talking about this, on LouisianaSports.net, he's got a piece up saying 3 players that, should get more playing time, one of which he mentions is Jamari Butler, which I think is a good choice because I think Jamari Butler's quietly been good. He hadn't had a ton of sacks, but he's had a lot of pressures. He's gotten in there with some tackles. Like, you brought in Jack Pyburn, Patrick Payton, and Jamari Butler to pair with a Gabriel Relaford. A lot of people kind of forgot about Jamari Butler. They're like, oh, Patrick Payton, the premier pass rusher. We know how physical Jack Pyburn is. He's going to stop the run. He can move down and play tackle if he needs to. Jamari Butler has maybe been the best of those 3. He's done a really nice job. Like, LSU has 11 sacks in 5 games. Pyburn has 1. Patrick Payton has half a sack. Gabriel Relaford didn't have 1. And Butler doesn't have 1. But they're disruptive. They do what they need to do to get the job done, which is why a lot of teams aren't running in between the tackles on this defensive line and why you're forcing a lot of turnovers, because while there's not sacks, your defensive line is getting pressure. You are forcing some hurries. You haven't gotten to the quarterback a ton, but you're doing your job. You're making them uncomfortable. So I think, look, you could go back and forth on the defense. Like, you say, oh, the linebacking core. You could say, oh, hell, Harold Perkins. He's found his home at star. It's a perfect spot for it. We talked about that a lot in preseason. Saying, you tried him inside. You tried him on the edge. He's really good in coverage. You don't think he's an every down interior linebacker. You put him on the edge. Is he an every down pass rusher? You can do a little bit of all of that at the star position, which is why I liked it so much when they announced it was going to happen. He's been awesome. He might be the best player on your defense this year. No surprise to anyone, but Harold Perkins seems like he makes play after play after play in big moment. He has been awesome. Love him at the star position. We know the defense is good, though, right? Like, I'm giving you all these positives. What do you notice all of them on the defensive side of the ball? There's a few on the offense as well. Like, going back to the Ole Miss game. I know he got beat a few times. He's a true freshman. I look curious. Kern showed a lot of promise. He found out, I think they said 22 minutes before opening kickoff that he was going to start because Weston Davis got injured with a concussion in pregame. Still not 100% sure how that happens, but he did. And Karius Kern went in there and he held his own. Again, you saw him get beat on the sack by Deshaun Womack, but Womack was way offsides, and ultimately they did call it. Like, there are a few things here and there, but I thought he played well, and so did Brian Kelly. Brian Kelly said in one of the postgame press conferences he did, I thought Karius Kern reminded me a lot of Emory Jones. You mean the guy that had to step in as a freshman because of injury, never relinquished that spot, and wound up being a 3-year starter for you? That guy? I'll take that comparison. I'll take that comparison all day long. He was a guy that had hype all fall camp. You were kind of looking for a spot for him. Maybe a try tackle. Weston Davis' status is up in the air. he's been kind of shaky anyways. Maybe this is an opportunity for Karius Kern to get some more snaps. Also, Harlem Berry's quietly having a really good year. I was looking at the running game the other day because, shocker, that's what everyone's talking about this week. Harlem Berry is averaging 5 yards per carry for the Tigers. And it's not one of those things where it's like, oh, well, he only has 12 carries. Of course, he's got a pretty good average. He's got 22 on the year. I mean, that's not huge, but that's enough of a sample size in my eyes to say, okay, there's a little something here with Harlem Berry. He had the touchdown last week against Ole Miss. He was kind of your only running game in that ball game. He did a really nice job. He's probably going to continue to get more touches. It's funny. I mentioned the article that Hunt put out. He was kind of in lockstep with me. Like he mentioned Jamari Butler getting more snaps. The other two players, Karius Kern and Harlem Berry. Like, this isn't one person's opinion here. Go look at the numbers. Go look at the tape. Like it backs it up. Karius Kern deserves more snaps. Harlem Berry deserves a heck of a lot more snaps, especially if Caden Durham's still not fully healthy. I imagine he'll give it a go against South Carolina and be pretty close to full strength. But even if he is full strength, you need a complimentary back. You need a number 2. It was Jawan Johnson. And it could still be Jawan. I think he's actually been pretty effective and efficient so far outside of the Ole Miss game. Ole Miss kind of bottled him up. But before that, I thought he did a really nice job. Harlem Berry needs touches too. Because, I mean, Caleb Jackson, there's just something up with Caleb Jackson. I don't know what it is. He's 235 pounds and he doesn't really know it. So you have Durham. Can Johnson keep going? Can Harlem Berry get more carries in that rotation as well? All of a sudden, you may not have a dominant running back. You may not have a good running game, but can those 3 guys stay in fresh and rotate in? Can they give you something in the running game? I think Harlem Berry's been pretty good. All right, we're going to take a timeout. When we get back, we're going to talk some New Orleans Saints, kind of get a more lengthy breakdown than that quick one I gave you at the end of hour 1. We got Ross Jackson of Locked On Saints and LouisianaSports.net. Coming up next, talking black and gold. That's here on The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show. This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Quirks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
Number 2 here on a Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Taylor Sharp sitting in the host chair for Hunt Palmer. We got about 40 minutes or so left here on this football Friday. I want to go back to the phone lines right now because the LSU Tigers don't play, but the New Orleans Saints do, hosting the New York Giants this Sunday. To break it all down, we got Ross Jackson with Locked On Saints and writes for us right here at LouisianaSports.net. Ross, how are you today?
Hey, man, doing great. Glad to be here with you.
Thanks absolutely, man. Thanks so much for hopping on. Ross, when I look at this game, obviously you're playing a quarterback like Jackson Dart. He adds a little bit more of a running element than a guy like Russell Wilson would. And I understand they gave up 31 points last week to the Bills. I understand that Josh Allen was good in the fourth quarter. He's Josh Allen. He might be the best football player in the NFL. But for the most part, I thought you actually did an okay job against Josh Allen. I mean, what are your thoughts on maybe the improvements of this defense? Like, how can they slow down Jackson Dart on the ground? I mean, what are your thoughts there?
Yeah, no, look, I completely agree with you. I actually think the Saints did do a pretty good job up against Josh Allen until Josh Allen became Josh Allen in the fourth quarter, right? Does things that MVP-level players do. Jackson Dart is not that player. Now, Jackson Dart does have the ability to be mobile. We're also about a guy that got sacked 5 times last week and has an offensive line that has to do a lot of improvising because of the amount of improvising that he does. And it's unlikely that that's going to necessarily, completely flip on its head in 1 week. And so I think the Saints defense, which, has 11 sacks in the season so far, isn't really generating pressure at a consistent rate or a high rate. They're one of the lowest teams in pressure rating. But when they do get pressure, they're getting and making plays on the quarterback. And so I think that's going to be a big part of what the Saints are going to be looking to do. They're going to try to disguise, make him think with the ball in his hands and see if they can get their guys there.
Look, I mean, Dart might be a rookie, but it looks like, Quincy Riley might be set to start due to this Yadam injury. I mean, do you have any expectations for him in this game?
Yeah, I mean, look, Riley is somebody that I think they've been working more and more into the lineup since that Seattle Seahawks game. He was out there early on in that game, and then late when the Saints kind of, sat down all their starters once that game got out of hand late in the fourth quarter. And so during that time, he ended up making a play by punching a football out on a run play, which is not usually what you're used to seeing corners do. But that's the kind of player that Quincy Riley is. He's the kind of guy that gets involved in run defense. He's a good tackler. He wants to go out there and make plays on the football. And he's a ball hawk. I mean, that's the guy that had the most interceptions of any corner in the 2025 draft class. And so he's a player that, could help this New Orleans Saints team quite a bit if he can continue that trend going into the NFL. Saints didn't get their first interception until another rookie, Jonas Sanker, at safety, got it for them last week. And so I'm sure he'd love to add to the tally of takeaways, which he's already shown propensity to be able to do.
Look, Ross, one more on the defense before we switch over to the offensive side of the ball. I was looking at the injury report yesterday, and you're getting a little bit healthier. You're getting some guys back, but what is the deal with Chase Young? Because I feel like at the beginning of the year, they were like, oh, yeah, it's this calf thing. It doesn't seem to be anything serious. Like, we're in week 5, and it doesn't seem like he's any closer to playing now than he was week 1. What's the issue there?
Yeah, so when the injury first happened, Chase Young, gave a vehement disagreement with the idea that the injury would be long-term in the locker room. And then that kind of set the expectation that, okay, this isn't a big deal. It won't take long. Kellen Moore said that it would be a week-to-week situation, but never really said that it wasn't going to be, what it was or wasn't going to be, I guess, timeline-wise. And so I think the biggest indication for what the expectation was, however, is that they didn't put him on injured reserve. And I know you're trying to save those designated to return spots, but typically when you use those designated to return spots, you probably want to use them on the guys that are the most important players to your team. And that was certainly the expectation of who Chase Young would be coming into the season. But now he's been off the field for 5 weeks. And I think that goes to show that there was obviously a different expectation versus the reality of whatever happened. So I don't know if it was a setback. I don't know if it was anything else. I thought that it was a very loud statement that the Saints ruled him out on Wednesday. Didn't even give him a chance to practice Thursday and Friday. They had already ruled him out by the end of Wednesday's practice. I thought that was pretty loud. So whether it was whatever they expected, it was actually worse, or whether it was a setback, or whether it was just a statement from the Saints by saying, we're just going to rule you out, I don't know. But in any case, this situation obviously has not gone the way, or at least I shouldn't say obviously, but appears very strongly to not have gone the direction that the Saints initially expected.
All right, Ross, switching over to the offensive side of things. Like, you're going up against the Giants team that has a pretty good defensive line, like for the most part. Now, you're without Cesar Ruiz, but you do get Trevor Penning back. How do you see this O-line holding up against this Giants front?
Yeah, I mean, look, they're going to have to be physical. They're going to have to be violent. And two of the most physical and violent players on that offensive line are going to be starting this week, and that's Trevor Penning as well as Torricelli Simpkins, the young rookie, who I spoke to the run game coordinator, TJ Paganetti, today, and I asked him about Torricelli Simpkins. I can't say the first thing on air that he said about him, but I can say that he called him one of the smartest players that he's ever met, and playing with a very physical play style. I think that's exactly what you need in a game like this. You're going to go up against some really, really good defensive linemen. I know Dexter Lawrence hasn't practiced all week with illness, but I don't think that matters. I think he'll be out there on Sunday, and he's a veteran that knows exactly what his role is and how to do it in this defense. Brian Burns is crafty. Kayvon Thibodeau is really good and athletic. And then you got a young guy in Abdul Carter, but obviously, of course, one of the top draft picks in this year's class and one of the top pass rushers expected to become over the course of his career. And so I think you're looking for those guys that have both the intelligence, the smarts, and the aggressive play style. And so it's going to be really interesting to see him stepping in place of Cesar Ruiz. And the Saints got a little bit of help today, too, with Dylan Ravens getting back to practice. So they might be able to have him active for an emergency situation should they need to where they don't have to fall back to some of the undrafted guys or some of the guys that were brought in late or anything like that. So I think it's going to have to be the biggest thing. They're going to have to set the tone up against a really, really good defensive line. And if they can do that, the rest of that Giants defense is vulnerable and susceptible to big plays. And so if the offensive line can hold up and maybe the run game creates some opportunities for that defensive line and maybe have to second guess and play honest, there should be some opportunities available for Spencer Rattler in the passing game as well.
So let's get into that. Like, the Saints attack, and you were just mentioning the running game, which, again, I thought they did a pretty good job against the Bills. But, the D-line that you were just talking about with Lawrence and those guys, a little bit of a double-edged sword, right? Because, they're going to stop the run. They're a good D-line. But you just mentioned all the pass rushers. I mean, Carter, Burns, Kayvon Thibodeau. Do you think it's the running game approach similar to what it was against the Bills?
Yeah, I think so. Look, that for all the things that those players that we just talked about do very well in the pass game, they're not great in the run game. This is a 29th ranked rushing defense, and I think that they're actually either last or one of the 2 or 3 last, like bottom 2 or 3, when it comes to yards per attempt, which obviously is always a little bit different based upon how many rushing attempts against the team, all those other things. And so there's a real opportunity there for a Saints team that really, really started to figure out its identity as a rushing offense last week up against the Buffalo Bills, to be able to build off of the success that they had against the 32nd ranked rushing defense, now going up against the 29th ranked rushing defense. So a real opportunity for them. If they can do that, it forces that New York Giants defensive line to play a little bit more honestly, so that they can't just pin their ears back on obvious passing downs and obvious passing situations to go after. And let's go after Spencer Rattler. It lets the Saints play a little bit more of that mixed down football where it's either pass or run. They have the options available to them both. And then that in turn helps to open up the passing game for the receivers and pass catchers as well.
Speaking of pass catchers, 2 guys that haven't played yet this year, but they seem to be getting a little bit healthier. I mean, what's the latest on Taysom Hill and Foster Moreau?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, we spoke with Taysom Hill today, and he was really brutally honest about sort of the process, and that 2025 was not a guaranteed situation for him. And so he was really, really, you could tell that it meant a lot to him to be back at practice throughout this week. He's listed as a quarterback now as opposed to a tight end, but we know that doesn't matter.
Right.
And so we'll see exactly how involved those guys are. I don't know if we'll see either one of them on Sunday. There's the recovery process in terms of being healthy enough to play football, but then there's the conditioning process. And then in this system in particular, or this situation in particular, it's a brand new offensive system to fit into. So is 3 practices enough to get those guys out there? We'll see. I mean, it's not like the Saints have played their 3rd tight end too incredibly often throughout this season. So maybe there is kind of a package for Foster Moreau to fit into. Maybe there is some kind of short yardage package or short or red zone package for Taysom Hill to fit into. But when those guys do make their way back to the field, whether it's this week, I'd be way less surprised next week. Like next week feels very possible for them up against the Patriots. I'd be a little bit more surprised this week. But when those guys come in, I think it'll start with a really focused kind of role for both of them and then kind of grow out from there.
All right, Ross, last one before we get you out of here. Does Spencer Rattler get his first win as a starting quarterback?
Yes, I think this is the Saints' first best week and opportunity to get a win. There should be some things available to them in the passing game. They have not been able to complete, but just 3 20-plus yard completions so far this season. I think they could potentially do that, replicate that number in this game alone. And if the run game is doing what it did with Alvin Kamara and Kendre Miller last week, I think that's going to help them out quite a bit. So I think the biggest thing is just going to be not letting Jackson Dart and that and Cam Scatterbo as well. Those 2 rookies create a run game against you to where they're controlling the football. That's how the Giants beat the Chargers last week, even though it was kind of a subpar game otherwise. They controlled the clock. And so you've got to be able to counter that once you have the ball, New Orleans. And so I think that's something that they'll have to do. But if they can do that, I think this should be a win for them, and it should be Spencer Rattler's first win of his career.
All right, you heard it here. Ross Jackson guaranteeing a win for the black and gold over there.
I'll say 95%, man. Like, I'm very confident. I'm very confident about this game.
Well, there we go. Almost a guarantee for our guy, Ross Jackson. Again, Ross Jackson, Locked On Saints podcast, LouisianaSports.net. You can catch him on Twitter at Ross Jackson. Nola, Ross, thanks so much for hopping on with me today.
Of course, man. Thanks so much for having me. You take care. Stay safe. Talk to you soon.
Absolutely. That there was Ross Jackson. All right, we're going to take a quick timeout. When we get back, we're going to look at some of the top college football games because while LSU doesn't play, there are a lot of good ones for you football fans to check out. That's coming up on the other side or on a Football Friday edition of The Hunt Palmer Show.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Genesis of Baton Rouge, genesisofbatonrouge.com is the website. Every car that is on the lot is online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. Safety, probably a big deal if you're in the market for a vehicle. If you go shop at Genesis of Baton Rouge, you will know that you're getting behind the wheel of one of the safest cars on the road because every single model on the line, every single model was a IIHA top safety pick. Some of them were top safety picks plus. So from the entry level to the highest end, you're talking about a car that is among the safest on the road. It's a big, big deal. So you start there, then you go check out the style, the comfort, all those bells and whistles that come with a luxury brand of vehicle. That's all there for you at Genesis Baton Rouge. And if you make a purchase, every single purchase comes with a 10-year, 100,000-mile warranty. Every single purchase comes with 3 years of complimentary valet maintenance. It's all there at Genesis of Baton Rouge. I invite you to go by and see them. Airline at Pico across from Women's Hospital, or start your process today online at genesisofbatonrouge.com. genesisofbatonrouge.com.
You're listening to The Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Quirks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
All right, welcome back in. Hour number 2 here on a Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Got about 20 minutes or so left in this Football Friday edition. And what I want to do right now, I understand that LSU's on their bye week and they don't play, but if you're a fan of college football like I am, you're going to watch pretty much regardless of who's playing. And I think there's some pretty good games out there. Like, we'll start with the 11 a.m. window. And Beck, if you see one in the 11 a.m. window, you want to throw it in there, go right ahead. But like, I'm starting with Iowa State, Cincinnati. Now, this game, Cincinnati was a 2.5-point favorite earlier. They're now 1.5. I understand why they're the favorite. It's because Iowa State lost both of their starting corners to knee injuries. They are both out for the year. This will be the first game without both of them. But Jeremiah Cooper, who's a really good corner for him and one of the starters, he missed last week's game against Arizona. And they held a really good Arizona offense to 14 points. I like this Iowa State team. If you listen to OTB and you heard our preseason top 25 rankings, it's a team I was high on then. I've bet on them multiple times this year, picked them to win. They haven't let me down yet. I think Iowa State wins this game. I don't think Cincinnati should be the favorite. Like, I get it. Brendan Sorsby throws the ball well. You're scared that secondary is going to give up some points, but let's not forget that Iowa State's got a pretty efficient offense too. Like, Rocco Becht has been there for 3 years. You have Carson Hansen back, who was a good running back for you a year ago. You have 5 offensive linemen from last year's team with starting experience that returned this year. So a good O-line, a 3-year starter at quarterback, a solid running back, and sure, you lost Jaden Higgins, you lost Jalen Noel. But you have 2 tight ends. Benjamin Brahmer's one of them. Like, they do a really good job there as well. I think Iowa State wins this game, and I think they win this game by about a touchdown. I think they win by 6 or 7 points. I don't think Cincinnati should be favored in this game. Iowa State is 5-0. I trust Matt Campbell. And again, Rocco Becht has been there, done that. He's played in a lot of big-time football games. Beck, am I off base with that? Like, I understand that their 2 starting corners are out, but Iowa State had one of the best returning production of any team. They had both of their starting safeties from a year ago back as well. Like, yeah, they lost their 2 corners, but I think this Iowa State team's pretty deep. Yeah, I'm a bit surprised by that, but it's always interesting whenever you get a home dog favored by that little. You would expect Iowa State to be favored in that game. So sometimes I wonder about those games. Like, okay, well, yeah, it seems like maybe it's one of those ones that Vegas knows something about that I don't. But I'd agree with you there. I would expect Iowa State to be favored in that one, even though it is in Cincinnati. But Cincinnati, yeah, look, they haven't done anything. I mean, they haven't played really anyone. They lost to Nebraska. They beat Bowling Green, played Northwestern State, and then they beat Kansas by 3 points. Right. So what do we really know about them? Iowa State got a pretty good win opening the season against Kansas State. They beat Iowa. They blew out Arizona. So I think Iowa was a 5-point game, 5-point favorite against Arizona. They beat them by over 20. Yes, so that's a good one. That's a pretty good one. So I'm with you there. I would expect Rocco Becht to go in there and lead Iowa State and to a win there. Right. And so many people are going to say, well, look, having 2 starting corners are big. I understand that. Both your starting corners out is big, but looking at the offense, I think Iowa State can outscore Cincinnati, even if their defense does give up a lot of points. I mean, we're acting like this offense is really one-dimensional. I think Iowa State's a pretty complete football team. I think they win that. All right, here's one for you in the 11 a.m. window, Beck. Can I interest you? Are you ready for this? No. Listen, man, the championships between these 2 coaches is 8 combined between the college and the NFL ranks. They are 2 big-name programs. They are 2 premier college football coaches. Can I interest you in Clemson at North Carolina that is apparently, I've seen the joke going around that it's going to be on Cartoon Network. That's how bad both these teams are.
No, you cannot interest me in that game. That's going to be an absolute rock fight. I mean, it's pretty telling how bad North Carolina is when Clemson are 14.5-point favorites on the road, and Clemson has done nothing to show any sort of pulse at all, and they're going in there at 14.5-point favorites. But I still don't think I mean, of course, I still don't think the Bill Belichick experiment is going to work. I mean, it's pretty clear so far. It's not going well. It's only the first year, so maybe he can build the culture that he had with the Patriots in a few years here. But this is a totally different ball game in college football, and especially with NIL and everything. So I'm not interested in Clemson, North Carolina. Sorry.
I got to tell you, I know Clemson hasn't been good this year. I'd lay the 13.5 and take Clemson to cover that game. I think North Carolina does not have a Power 5 or Power 4 now roster. They don't. Their roster is awful. I don't know how they have 2 wins. Like, I get it. It's against smaller schools. But, I mean, you look at what they've done against any school with a pulse. Like, they can't get anything going. Like, you lose to TCU 48-14. And that was a game where you scored in your opening drive and you're like, okay, maybe North Carolina has anything. Nope. You beat Charlotte 20-3. They're not very good. Your other win is against Richmond. You lost to UCF. You got the doors blown off of you. The 2 Power 4 opponents that you have played this year, TCU and UCF, have beaten you 48-14 and 34-9. This is not a Power 4 roster. Again, I think Clemson goes in there, and like Beck's right, that Clemson hasn't looked good either, but I cannot take this North Carolina program seriously. You were saying this is only the first year of Bill Belichick. I'm not sure he even wants to come back after this year, man. They're not firing him after 1 year, but like I don't think that he's going to want to come back. And he's not going to get any NFL offers because he's been so bad. That's not going to happen. I mean, Belichick he doesn't even seem like he wants to be there. Like there's the pictures of his girlfriend coming down pregame on the field talking to him. Like he's not taking this job seriously. He hasn't taken his roster serious, and that's the exact reason why they're a joke this year. Like I'm good on that. All right, 2:30 window. A little bit better. Like, look, the 11 a.m. window is not great. Like, I think Iowa State, Cincinnati by far is the best one. Like, there's not a whole lot. 2:30 window. A lot of people are predicting this, Beck. A lot of people are saying they think Florida's going to beat Texas. Do you think Florida at home is going to beat the Texas Longhorns?
No.
I don't either. I think that program is done. I think Billy Napier, if he wins this game, it's just a stay of execution for him, and he's prolonging his career at Florida by another couple weeks. I don't think Billy Napier is going to make it through this season. Again, we were talking during break. Like, we give bold predictions on OTB before the season. Mine was that Florida's going to win 5 games or less. I think they're going to finish with a losing record, and they're 1-3. They're well on their way to do that because they got a hell of a schedule. That game just, I know a lot of people are saying they're interested in that one. I'm not. And yes, it's down Texas 5.5. I don't think Texas is going to blow them out. I don't think Florida wins this game. Like, I could see Texas losing it just because that's what Texas does in the past, but this is a bad Florida football team. Like, even if they stop Arch Manning, which is perfect, totally possible, he hadn't been great, they can't score points on offense. I mean, they can't do anything offensively. Even if Texas scores 20 points, I think that's enough to beat this Florida team. All right, here's the big one. Alabama, Vanderbilt. Does Vanderbilt do it twice?
No, I don't think they do. I do.
Do they cover the 11 and a half?
Yeah, that's, I think it's going to be a good game.
Okay.
I know I mentioned this. We had a station survey. I don't know if it's probably going to come out tomorrow. About
I gotta freaking do the station survey.
We have one coming soon this Saturday. Talking about the rest of the season for LSU, and I mentioned the Vanderbilt game because, like I said, I'm sure there were a lot of people in Tuscaloosa that were really laughing before that game, thinking, "Oh, we're playing Vanderbilt. What's going to happen? I mean, what's the worst that can happen? Well, you could lose." And especially with this offense, I know they haven't really been tested that much yet in terms of their schedule. I mean, they went on the road to Columbia, and that was a good win. I know Lenora Sellers got hurt, but he's not playing on defense. They still scored 31 points against them. Right. I think this is going to be a good game. Diego Pavia is he's just a difference maker for them. I mean, he has in the last 2 years he's been really good. And I think he's going to be able to run an efficient offense in Tuscaloosa, and it's going to be a close game. I
think it's going to be a close game, too. I do think Alabama wins this game. I think that, if Vanderbilt wouldn't have embarrassed them a year ago. Maybe it'd be a little bit Alabama. What Alabama's not doing is they're not overlooking Vanderbilt like they did a year ago. I mean, it was very obvious because people are going to say, well, this isn't your dad's Vanderbilt or whatever you want to call it. I get that. They lost 6 games a year ago. Like, they're actually a lot better this year than they were. Like, Alabama, sure, Alabama wasn't what they are. Vanderbilt was a little bit better. That was a 7-6 football team a year ago. They're better this year, but Alabama's also not overlooking a 5-0 team that is ranked inside the top 20.
Yeah,
I think Ty Simpson, like, whatever shortcomings he had in that Florida State game,
he's figured it out.
He looked really good against a good defense at Georgia. I mean, I think Alabama does. I think Vanderbilt easily covers that 11.5, but I think Bama takes about a touchdown. I think they get that done. All right, before we get a break here, night game back. Which one are you paying attention to? Do you like Mississippi State at Texas A&M? Or are you going Miami, Florida State? Which one will capture your attention tomorrow night?
It's Miami, Florida State. I do think that Mississippi State has shown their mettle this season.
I don't think there's any way Texas A&M beats them by 16.5. No, they're favored by. That is not happening.
That line is very crazy to me. And again, that line scares me a bit there.
Look, if Texas A&M covers 16.5, I'll come in Monday and be like, hey, Texas A&M might be the best team in the SEC because Mississippi State's playing good. They should have won last week.
They did
against Tennessee. I don't see Texas A&M winning by that much.
Yeah, no, that line is a little scary to me, but I would definitely side with Mississippi State not losing by 17 points in that game. But Miami, Florida State is very interesting. These are two teams that haven't been relevant really recently, and now they are. They're both in the top 20. Florida State, of course, that great win against Alabama to open the season. And Carson Beck looks like a reinvigorated guy playing quarterback in Miami. Yes, I went to journalism school, Taylor. I know some words. But yeah, no, this is a really cool matchup to see both of these teams being relevant right now. I mean, it's still early in the season, but you got Miami at number 3 right now, and they kind of look like maybe the class of the ACC right now. And Florida State,
it's not November yet.
It's not. And
Florida State gets to play them before November, which sucks. Like Miami collapses every November. They're probably going to do it here again.
Yeah, and then it's unfortunate that Florida State lost that one in overtime to Virginia. But again, what did you really expect from Florida State this year? I mean, even just that first win was great for them. So that should be that'll be definitely the more interesting game probably of Saturday.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think Florida State does have a shot in that. They're 4.5 point underdogs at home. Before we get a break, me and you could take a trip for a cool $307. We could sit in the upper deck. That is the cheapest ticket currently for Miami at Florida State.
Wow.
Everyone fired up about that one. All right, we're going to take a quick time out. We got one segment left. We're wrapping it up like we do every day with a little take it or leave it.
The Hunt Palmer Show.
Swing Easy Golf Club in Baton Rouge, swingeasygcbr.com. Brand new here in Baton Rouge. If you're into golf, no matter your skill level, Swing Easy Golf Club is an awesome spot for you. You can work on your game no matter the weather conditions outside, if it's 1,000 degrees or if it's raining or if it's 25 degrees, it gets dark at 5 o'clock like we'll get to in December and January. The bays at Swing Easy Golf Club, always ready to rock, and you can work on your game there with the driving range mode, or it's a great place to hang out and socialize. Grab a beer, grab a glass of wine, hit some golf shots, play Pebble Beach, play Cypress Point, play St. Andrews, one of those famous golf courses in the world right there on their simulators. It's a great place, a great environment, and an awesome spot to hang out or work on your golf game. They're Segan at Perkins at Swing Easy Golf Club. You can find them online at swingeasygcbr.com. Swing Easy Golf Club, swingeasygcbr.com.
This is the Hunt Palmer Show, brought to you by Quirks, Cajun fried fish and shrimp.
Welcome back in. Final segment here on a Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. Taylor Sharp sitting in for Mr. Hunt Palmer. He will be back on Monday. Just a few more minutes to go here, and we're going to close this thing out like we do every day with a little take it or leave it. Hit it, Beck.
Take it or leave it.
Take it
it or leave it.
Presented to you by Flight by Yingling, the next generation of light beer, crafted by America's oldest brewery. Today's hottest stories in sports, news, and sometimes even Hunt's life. The question is, will he take them or leave them?
All right, what we got?
All righty. First of all, of course, sponsored by Flight by Yingling. I'll throw that one in there for you, Hunt. Thank you very much. All right. It's a great beer. I've had it many times. Cassie's had it.
I just ran out.
Oh, yeah, I did too. Cassie's had it. She doesn't even like beer, and she thought it was good.
Cassie, more of a tequila shot girl?
Yes, of course. She is. Definitely that. But, all right, first one. Theo Vaughn as guest picker for Alabama Vanderbilt. Take it or leave it.
Leave it. He's not from there. Like, I understand that.
He's a Vandy guy. So why would they have
a lot of time in Nashville? No. He's from Covington.
Yeah, no. It doesn't make any sense because he's if anything, he's a Vanderbilt guy. So the game's in Tuscaloosa.
Found this out today. Channing Tatum's from Alabama. He's an Alabama fan.
They could have went with him.
They went Justin Thomas a few times. Yeah. And, there's some athletes you could go as well. Like, yeah, I'm leaving that. He doesn't really have a strong tie to either school. Like, I know, his time in Nashville, he's kind of become like an adopted Vandy fan. But I mean, you could have got somebody that's more aligned with either of those schools. I'm leaving that.
Yeah, I like Theo, but this is if the game was in Nashville, then that would make a little bit more sense. But the fact it's in Tuscaloosa, yeah, I'm sure Alabama people are pretty fired up about that. But moving on, October is the best month. Take it or leave it.
Easily take this. Taking this so hard, especially here in Louisiana. I think it's the best weather month we have because, like, I don't want to be sweating as soon as I walk outside, but I'm also not a huge fan of the cold. You got like mid-80s in October. It's great. Football season in full swing. It's spooky season. Love Halloween. That's a big thing for me. The haunted houses, the scary movies, everything. October vibes all the way around. Take it. Absolutely.
All righty, next one. Mac Jones, 3-0 as McCorkle Jones. That's his real name, by the way. McCorkle is 3-0 as the 49ers starting QB and has thrown 6 touchdowns and 1 pick. Brock Purdy is 1-1 with 4 touchdowns and 4 interceptions. McCorkle is the new starter in San Fran. Take it or leave it. I think you got to leave that.
Not a shot at Mac. I'm leaving it. I can give you 253 million reasons why Brock Purdy is going to be the starting quarterback because I do think Purdy's a good quarterback. He's been playing a little banged up all year long as well, and they paid him a ton of money to be the starter. Mac Jones, it's good to have a backup of that quality. He's not going to be the starting quarterback long term. It is Brock Purdy.
Yeah, I got to say, though, very impressive what he's done in these games. I mean, the Saints, not great team, but still played well there. And then last night, man, he put on a pretty good performance there in that one.
Are you telling me that Bill Belichick did not put Mac Jones in the best position to win?
Maybe.
The longer Bill Belichick coaches football, the more I believe it was all Tom Brady.
I mean, of course, almost everybody would scoff at that and say it's blasphemy to say that Bill Belichick isn't a good coach. And I'm not going to sit here and say that it was all Tom Brady, but look, I mean, when you have what most people say the best quarterback of all time, it's hard to argue whether or not the coach was the main factor or really a big factor in why they were so good.
We were looking at this the other day. It's either 10 or 11 years that he was a coach in the NFL without Tom Brady. Had 2 winning seasons in those 10 years.
Yep. All right, moving on. I got a few quick ones here. Jackson Dart says he has a chip on his shoulder after the Saints passed on him. The Saints made a mistake. Take it or leave it.
I'm going to leave it, and here's why. I don't care if Jackson Dart's good or not. If you didn't want him at 9, you didn't think he was your franchise quarterback. Like, I understand the Giants traded back up. If the Saints truly thought this was their franchise quarterback, a franchise quarterback's worth the number 9 overall pick. They didn't. They stuck to their guns. They didn't take it.
Last one. The Cubs were going to win the World Series. Take it or leave it. Take it.
I'll take it. I'm going to leave it. I know Jacob Beck is a fan.
I'll take it.
For selfish reasons, I need a Hunt Palmer meltdown on this show. So for that reason alone, I am pulling for the Milwaukee Brewers because Hunt thinks that a team that wins games is not a good baseball team, which blows my mind.
I agree with him. They're bad.
I need a Hunt Palmer meltdown. Consider me a Brewers fan here moving forward throughout the postseason. All right, that's going to do it for a Friday edition of the Hunt Palmer Show. He'll be back on Monday talking LSU South Carolina game week.
The Hunt Palmer Show.